So inshallah we'll begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just like last week, it was a very informational topic that we had about zakah. Important masail were discussed. So this week inshallah as well, we will be discussing important masail and rulings related to fasting. Sometimes some things get a little bit technical, but we'll try and keep it as simple as possible. And this is designed to be easily understandable in simple language, and everything has been broken down in a manner that we can understand. So inshallah we will go through this presentation, and today we're here to learn about the rulings of fasting and what we need to know, right, the do's and the don'ts, and basic common questions that people ask during the month of Ramadan. So everything will be covered inshallah if you pay attention over here, and we'll give access to the presentation itself later on as well, so people can refer back to it if they have any questions. And inshallah, majority of the questions that people normally have in the month of Ramadan, they will be answered in this presentation inshallah, that are directly related to fasting and its related masail. So this is a basic overview of what we will be discussing. We have the obligation, definition, intention, mustahabbat, meaning those actions which are desired, makruhat, those actions which are disliked, mufsidat, two types, those actions which break the fast, the nullifiers, the non-invalidators, right, meaning those things which are similar to those things that make the fast invalid, but they don't make the fast invalid. And then we have the kafara, awarid, fidya, and a few other frequently asked questions, inshallah ta'ala. Obligation of fasting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the same ruku which Nishaj recited, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. So this is the basic command of fasting from the Quran. As in the Sharia, sometimes people ask, where did you get this ruling from? So all the rulings that we find in books of fiqh, the scholars, the fuqaha, the jurists, do not just make them up that, I feel this is right, so I'm going to say this. No. All the rulings that we see in the book of fiqh, whether they mention it or not, they've all been derived from the Quran, Hadith. There's four sources: Quran, Hadith. These are the two primary sources, and then the third source is ijma', general consensus, and fourth is qiyas, analogical deduction. So all of fiqh that we see, the masail, the rulings that we see, they are deduced from these four sources: Quran and Hadith being the primary sources. So because Quran and Hadith, they're very deep in meaning. So every time the faqih, the jurist, will not mention which Quran ayah or which hadith he got the ruling from, but they do come from a ayah or a hadith or one of the other two things that I mentioned, right? So everything has a proof, although we may not know the proof. The proof will not always be presented to us because it will make things very complicated, but everything has been derived from the primary sources of Quran, hadith, ijma' and qiyas. So even here, the ruling of fasting has been directly mentioned in the Quran. And in this ayah, Allah also mentions the purpose of fasting, which you've been hearing a lot about these days, whether it's the Jum'ah khutbah or the daily, the khatira that happens after Isha Salah, the reminder. You've been hearing a lot about the purpose of fasting, why do we fast, and how do we obtain that purpose. So inshallah, I'm not going to talk about that because we've already discussed that before as well. And also next week we'll be having a general program related to these general matters and nasa'ih, advices related to fasting in the month of Ramadan. So that will probably be discussed next week again. So, but the purpose is mentioned here, and that is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so you can obtain taqwa. What is taqwa? We've discussed in our khatiras after Isha, and maybe it will be discussed next week as well, inshallah ta'ala. From the hadith, the proof of fasting is from this hadith, or these are one of the hadith, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions that Islam is founded on 5 pillars, and one of them is wasawmi Ramadan, fasting in the month of Ramadan. This hadith is in Sahih Al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So fasting is prescribed to this ummah, it was prescribed to the previous ummahs as well. The difference is in the details of fasting, the rulings of fasting, and what fasting entails, as we will understand now, that in our deen, in the Sharia of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what does fasting entail? What is the definition of fasting? Because the definition changes from Sharia to Sharia, right? So in the Sharia of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sharia Muhammadiyah, what is the definition? This is exactly what we'll be discussing next, inshallah ta'ala. Now, what is the definition of fasting? First, in any book of fiqh that you will see, when you come to a new topic, you will have a linguistic meaning of the word and a legal meaning, the shari'i meaning. So, sawm, what is a dictionary meaning? The linguistic meaning, it means to abstain. And Arabic is such a beautiful language. And similar goes with the Sharia. Whenever the Sharia uses a specific word to describe something, that word always has a connection with its root meaning. So over here, Sawm literally means to abstain. So why has fasting been called Sawm? Because Sawm, fasting, means the meaning of fasting entails abstaining from certain things which are otherwise permissible. So that is why Sawm is called Sawm. That is how the legal meaning is connected to the linguistic meaning. So what does fasting mean in the Sharia legally? It means to abstain from eating, drinking, relations during the daylight hours with an intention. There's three parts of this definition. First is the first part, to abstain from these things during the daylight hours with the intention of fasting performed by one who is capable and required to do so. Going forward in this meeting, we're going to discuss the first part, to abstain from eating, drinking, and relations. So one is when it comes to food. So we have those things which are actual. We have actual and effective. Actual means those things which are normally eaten, normal food which we eat, right? Like you have a burger here, you have some nice, some cocktail or some nice juice over here, right? And then you have those things which are not eaten but could be eaten, but they're not considered food, right? So that is called effective. So example here is like paper, dirt, etc. Right? So this is what actual and effective. So just keep that in mind. So abstain from eating, drinking, and eating, drinking includes both the actual and the effective. Both categories are included in the definition. And then we have during the daylight hours. What are the daylight hours? The daylight hours is the time from when the fasting starts, which is dawn, fajr time, right? Which is dawn, fajr time, subh sadiq, which we say. From that time, not sunrise. Sunrise is the beginning time of fajr. The fasting begins at dawn, at subh sadiq, right? Not at sunrise. So from dawn all the way till ghurub, till sunset, right? This is the time of fasting. This is what is considered the daylight hours. So daylight does not mean from sunrise when the sun comes up. Daylight means from subh sadiq, from dawn. So in these hours. And then with the intention of fasting, meaning that if someone just stayed hungry the entire day but they did not have an intention, then that fast will not be a fast. What does intention mean, first and foremost? What is the meaning of niyyah? Niyyah is in the heart. Niyyah is not necessarily done by tongue. Whether it's salah, whether it's fasting, you don't have to say the niyyah. Niyyah has to be there in your heart. As long as you have an intention in your heart, you know what you are doing, then this counts as niyyah. Traditionally, maybe some people when growing back home, they taught us to say certain sentences or certain statements. I am performing fajr ki namaz ada kar raha hu, qibla ruk karke Allah ke samne. This is just there to help people make sure the intention is there, but they don't have to be said. It's not something that is necessary. As long as you know in your mind and your heart what you're doing, this is enough for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So you don't have to say it with the tongue. If someone wants to say it, that's fine, but it's not required. And the last part, performed by one capable and required to do so. So one is capable, one is required. There are two things over here. Capable. So first category are those upon whom fasting is obligatory. So for any action, any ruling of Islam, any action of Islam, whether it's salah, whether it is zakah, whether it is fasting, first comes that upon whom is this obligation necessary? Who needs to do this action? Right? That is what we mean that upon whom is it obligatory. And then once it's obligatory on someone, the second part of the second question is, now it's obligatory upon this person. Does he need to do it now or does he need to do it later? So that is the second part. So one is when something becomes obligatory upon you, right, to do that action in general. And then second is, do you need to do it now or do you have leeway to do it later? So in terms of general obligation, if a person is Muslim, they are sane, they are aqil, they are in the right state of mind, and third, they are mature, they are baligh. Now the wujub of fasting will come upon this person. This person has to fast, right? This person needs to fast. Fasting is obligatory for them. They are not excused from fasting. Now the question is this person obliged to fast right now in Ramadan, or does he or she have the permissibility to fast later? So these next factors will determine the second part. That if a person is physically able to fast, and for a lady, if she is free from her monthly cycle and her postnatal bleeding, and number three, if a person is a muqim, a resident, and not a traveler, now if these three conditions are found, now not only is fasting obligatory, but they need to do it now in the month of Ramadan when the obligation has come. If any of these second set of conditions, if any of these first three are missing, they don't need to fast at all. If any of these second three are missing, they need to fast, but they may have a leeway to do it later, or they may be required to do it later and not right now. So keep this in mind. Next, we go to the intention. So what should the intention be? When should the intention be done? Now the principle is that the intention has to be made before each fast for it to count. Now when exactly does the intention need to take place? Now in general there's different types of fasting. You have farad fasting, wajib fasting, sunnah fasting. We're not going to go into all those details. We're just going to mention, because we're talking about Ramadan, so we'll just mention in general that for which type of fasting, when does the niyyah need to take place. Now, niyyah is important. If a person, let's say they were busy the whole day, they forgot to eat and drink. On a general day, they forgot to eat and drink the whole day. From the time they woke up before Fajr, so Sadiq time, right? And they never ate the whole day. Maybe they had a very early meal, right? Let's say Subh Sadiq was late in the winter, it's like 6 o'clock or 5:45, 6 o'clock. A person woke up 5:30 to get ready for work. He had his breakfast before Subh Sadiq. And then let's say he was busy the whole day. He only ate after Maghrib Salah at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m., right? Is this a fast? If he never had intention for fast, it's not a fast. You have to have intention, right? So, and you will only get a reward for this act if you have the intention. There's certain actions for which intention is required for it to count. And some actions, you don't need intention for it to count, but if you don't have intention, you will not get reward. The major actions, salah, zakah, sawm, you have to have intention, otherwise the act will not count. Some minor action like wudu is not an action in itself, is needed for salah. So according to Hanafis, if you don't have intention for wudu, wudu is done. But you will not get a reward unless you have intention to do wudu. Right? So if someone jumped in a body of water, right, and their whole body got wet, let's say in a swimming pool or the ocean, for example, they went swimming, their whole body got wet. Now the wudu is done, but if they never had intention for wudu, they will not get reward of wudu. But then it will count and they can perform their salah, right? So niyyat is important. Niyyat is important, sometimes it's required, and at other times it's not only required, it's required, and you also need it to obtain the reward. So intention is very important in Islam. That is why many muhaddithun, the first hadith they bring in their book is إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions depend on intentions. So make sure your intention is correct for whatever action you do. If it's a bad action and you have a good intention, this is not correct. You have a bad intention for a good action, this is also not correct. Right? You have to have a good intention for a good action, and this is what is, this is what will count, inshallah, and this is what a person should aim for. Now, when do you do intention? There's two times when intention, where there's a cutoff time for intention. One is before Fajr, right? So intention can be made from after Maghrib, because in Islam or in Sharia, the day starts at sunset. So once the day starts at sunset, you can make the intention anytime after sunset. Now there's over here, this is where it splits. In some cases, you will need to do the intention between Maghrib and before the time of Fajr. And in some cases, you have leeway to do the intention all the way up to midday, known as Dahwatul Kubra. Now, before we discuss which kind of fasting goes in what category, what does midday mean? So this is what midday means, right? In Islamic midday, in Islam, what is a midday in the Sharia? The time between dawn, the starting time of Fajr, Subh Sadiq, and Maghrib, not sunrise, Subh Sadiq. Between Subh Sadiq and Maghrib, the middle time, this is what is called Dahwatul Kubra, and the midday in the Sharia. This is a diagram to help you understand. This is dawn. Let's say dawn is 4 a.m. in the summer. It's 4 a.m. You have to stop eating before 4 a.m. Right? Sunrise comes after that. And then you have Maghrib at this time, 8 p.m. So the time in between the dawn and Maghrib time, exact half will be 12 p.m. This is known as Dahwatul Kubra. As the time changes, you just plug those times in, and the midway point is known as Dahwatul Kubra. And those types of fasting for which you are able to make intention till midday, you can find out what that cutoff time is by doing this calculation that is shown over here, right? Now, why do you need to know this? I will mention in a moment. Now, for which types of fasting do you need to make the intention between Maghrib, and it has to be done before Fajr, otherwise it will not count? The makeup, the qada fast of Ramadan, the qada fast of any nullified nafil fast. If a person was doing a nafil fast but they broke it in between for whatever reason, now you have to do a qada, right? So qada for Ramadan, qada for any other nafil fast that they have to make up because they broke it for whatever reason, kafara fasting, expiation, we'll discuss kafara all the way in the end, and then fasting of unspecified oaths. For example, a person made an oath that if I pass my exam, I will fast 3 days. They did not specify what 3 days. They just said 3 days. So for these kind of fasting, when they decide that they want to fast tomorrow, they have to make sure they make the specific intention before Fajr time. If they don't make intention before Fajr time and they just remain hungry and start fasting, but they didn't specify the niyyah, the fast will not count towards these things what they're fasting for. Okay? So for these things, you need to make specific niyyah before Fajr time, meaning before the time for fasting comes in. Now, The second category of fast, you have leeway to make intention up to midday. What are those fasts? Fast of Ramadan. If a person is doing it in the month of Ramadan. So fast of Ramadan, if one is doing it in Ramadan. A person, let's say they missed suhoor for whatever reason, they woke up and it's Fajr time. Now can you fast? You didn't make your intention? Yes, you can fast, make intention. You have until midday to make your intention, no problem. Right? If you're in the month of Ramadan. But let's say you're doing a qada fast and you missed suhoor and you woke up and you didn't make intention at night, now you cannot make fast. You cannot fast, right? For normal nafil fast, you have the option of making intention until midday. Let's say a person wants to do fasting of Shawwal, you're not feeling too well. You say, I'm going to wake up in the morning and see how I feel. You woke up at suhoor time, you had your suhoor, you're not 100% yet, you're 50%, you're 75%, you're feeling better. You're still not sure whether you want to fast. So you don't make your intention, you hold off. You wait till midday. Now right before midday, let's say midday is around 11 a.m. According to a time. So let's say at 10:30 you say, okay, I think I can do fast the rest of the day. You can make intention at that time and your fast will count for that day. Right? So this is the benefit of having leeway to make intention until midday. Normally this benefits a person when it comes to nafil fasting, when a person is not really sure whether they want to do the fast or not. Right? And then fast of a specified oath. A person made an oath that if I pass my exam, I'm going to fast on the second, third, and fourth day of Shawwal. Right? A person said, if I pass my exam, I'm going to fast on Shawwal 2, Shawwal 3, and Shawwal 4. Now when Shawwal 2 comes, a person has leeway to make intention up to midday. They don't have to make it before Fajr time. So intention of Ramadan fast is from Maghrib up until midday. The following day, you can make intention whether you're going to give that fast or not. What are some mustahabbat, some desirable actions in fasting? To partake of suhoor. تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. It is mustahab to do suhoor. So we should not skip suhoor. Sometimes people, especially youngsters, they go to sleep late. They say, we're going to have a late night snack and go to sleep. Wake up and have a little bit of suhoor. Whether it's a sip of water, one date, some milk, whatever it is, have some suhoor because there's barakah in suhoor. Right? There's barakah, there's blessing, and it's sunnah to do suhoor, the pre-dawn meal. To eat dates in suhoor. Normally, our mentality is eat dates to break the fast. It is also masnoon to have dates before the fast in suhoor time. So we should also have a date at suhoor time as well to act upon the sunnah. Because Nabi also mentions in a hadith of Abu Dawud how excellent are dates as the believers suhoor. To delay the suhoor up until a little bit before subh sadiq. So to have suhoor as late as possible. This is also desired. You should not delay it so much that you have maybe the time will come in last minute. You should keep a few minutes, maybe 5-minute gap or something to be sure. But it's better to do suhoor later rather than sooner. Right? This is mustahab. As it comes over here in Ibn Hibban, verily we group of prophets have been commanded to delay our suhoor. Meaning you eat up until almost close to the time when it is time to stop the fast. Right? This is masnoon. To end one's fast immediately after sunset by consuming something and not to delay in doing so. Meaning as soon as Maghrib time comes in, right away you break your fast. You should not delay in breaking the fast. Certain other groups of people, according to them, they purposely delay breaking the fast by 10-15 minutes. This is makruh to do. For us, we should break the fast right away, and this is what is sunnah. So as soon as you are sure that the time of Maghrib has come in and the adhan starts and you're sure that it's Maghrib time now, you should break the fast right away. It comes in a hadith that people will remain on goodness as long as they hasten the opening of the fast. Sahih al-Bukhari. And opening the fast can be done with some date, some kajur and water as well. You don't have to have a whole meal right away. You can just have anything small and your fast will be broken by that, inshallah. Number 5, to break one's fast with dates. So one is to break it early and one is to specifically break it with dates. Right? This is also mustahab. It can be fresh or dry, whatever is available. If that's not available, then with water as well is fine. And it comes in the hadith, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would break his fast with fresh dates before he prayed Maghrib Salah. If there was no fresh dates, then he would have dry dates. And sometimes he never even had dry dates. He only had some water, so he would take some sips of water. Number 6, it's also mustahab to safeguard your tongue from all kinds of impermissible things that you can do with your tongue. Lying, backbiting, slandering, cursing one another, my young friends, right? We should not do that during fasting. It is mustahab to stay away from that, and if you do it, it will be makruh to do that. So it comes in a hadith that whoever does not abandon false utterances, من لم يدع قول الزور والعمل به فليس لله حاجة في أن يضع طعامه وشرابه, then Allah cares that then Allah does not care, there's a typo here, that the person abundances food and drink. Allah does not care that the person abundances food and drink. Meaning Allah is not in need of a fast of a person who does these things while fasting. The fasting will count, but it will be less reward or maybe even no reward. Next is the makruhat of fasting. What things should be avoided while fasting? They don't break the fast, but they're makruh, they're undesirable. To chew paper, rubber, etc. So to chew anything, this is important, right? To chew anything that does not have a taste or any substances that will go down the throat, this is makruh, right? So for example, it can be rubber or any paper, as long as you don't take it down the throat, is makruh. To taste any food or drink and then to spit it out. So you're just tasting it, right? And then you spit it out, you don't swallow it. This is also makruh, unless a person has an excuse. For example, there's a husband who's extremely picky, and then the wife is cooking the food. If she cooks the food with less salt or less spice, then he'll get really angry when he comes home. So for her to be saved from the anger of the husband, if she just tastes the food a little bit and then spit it out right away to make sure it's okay, this is fine and permissible. Otherwise, in any other scenario, this is makruh. It's also makruh to collect your saliva in your mouth and swallow it, trying to quench your thirst. So it doesn't break your fast, but it's makruh to do that. We should try not to do that. One important point, please pay attention to this one. Some people ask, can you chew gum while fasting? I'm just chewing it, I'm not swallowing it, I'm just chewing it. So the masala about gum is that if the gum that we eat these days, right, that gum normally has things added to it. It has flavoring, it has sugar added to it. Even if it's sugar-free, it has flavorings added to it. So if the gum is such that it has flavorings or sugar or something added to it and you're chewing it, and whilst chewing it, the juices of the gum will mix with your saliva and go down your throat, this will invalidate the fast. However, if the person is chewing gum or any other substance, sometimes you get natural substances that come from trees, right, which has no flavor, no nothing. Let's say when you start chewing gum, it has all flavors. After you chew it for some time, it becomes flavorless and no juices come out. So let's say you have that gum, you save the piece of gum for whatever reason, and you would put that in your mouth later on while you are fasting, you're just chewing it, but it has no taste anymore, it has nothing inside. Then this would just be makruh, it wouldn't break your fast. But if it's like a fresh piece of gum and it has the taste, it has the stuff mixed inside, the flavors, and it goes down your throat with the saliva, this will invalidate the fast. So we should avoid that. Okay, so this is important. To gargle more than necessary. So that is why if we're fasting, we should not gargle like we shouldn't do harahara. We should only rinse our mouth and just put water in, rinse your mouth and spit it out. To do more than that, this is makruh because there is a chance of water going down. To complain of hunger and thirst, to take water up the nostrils more than necessary when cleaning the nose. Again, why is it makruh? Because it's a chance it can go all the way inside the throat and down at the stomach, this will break the fast. So it's best just to put a little bit of water in the edge of the nose and just clean it, not snuff the water up. To intentionally delay an obligatory bath until after dawn. If a person is in need of farad ghusl, then to purposely delay it till after dawn is makruh. However, if you wake up and let's say a person is in need of farad ghusl, but if you do ghusl, you won't have time to eat suhoor, then it doesn't matter. You can eat your suhoor and bath later, that's fine. If it's due to lack of time, it's fine. To purposely delay it is not good, but due to lack of time, if you delay the bath, there's no harm in that. The fasting is still valid and it counts. To use toothpaste or to clean your teeth while fasting, right? So why using toothpaste? Why is it makruh? Because again, there's a chance that some of the particles of the toothpaste or the flavoring will go down your throat and then your fast can break. That's why it's best not to use toothpaste. However, it is permissible, rather sunnah, to use a miswak, an unflavored miswak, right? Some miswaks have flavors added to it, right? Added to it later on, so that should be avoided. But just normal natural miswak is fine, and that is sunnah to do while fasting actually, right? So we can use miswak inshallah. To carry out, any act that can cause weakness and consequently affect the fast, such as cupping, drawing blood, etc. So some people ask, can I take a blood test can I give blood? Can I take a blood test? Can I do cupping while fasting? So these things do not break the fast, but because it makes you weak, and maybe because of becoming weak, you may need to break your fast later on if you become too weak. So that is why it's makruh. But if a person is 100% sure that I will not become weak and they want to do it, that's fine, they can do it. But if they have a possibility of becoming weak, they should avoid that. To quarrel, argue, lie, argue, use filthy language, this is all makruh as well. To backbite, tell a lie, and swear, right? This is also makruh. And these acts are sinful even when you're not fasting, right? But in fasting is even worse to do these acts. Now, which things break your fast? What are the invalidators? What are the mufsidat? This is important. There'll be a list of all of this later on as well, all the way in the end, which you can take a picture of later. This is just one by one, so we can understand easily. Now, when it comes to things that invalidate the fast, there's two categories of invalidators. One is that category that if a person does it, you have to do qada and kafara. What is kafara? We'll be explaining later. Second is the category that there's no qada, there's qada only, but no kafara, right? So this is the, like you can say, very serious stuff, because of which you have to do qada and kafara. And then you have the other category of where most of the things, they fall under the second category. If you do it, you only have to do qada, make it up later, but no kafara. Now you have two types of invalidators. You have relations and food and drink. In relations, it comes to two types again, actual and effective, right? If a person actually does an act, then it's qada and kafara. However, if a person purposely, they take out the liquid, then this will necessitate qada only, right? Again, we have some young kids standing here, but we also have some adolescent kids here. So if a person purposely takes out semen from their body, this will break the fast, but you have to do only qada, right? If you purposely take out semen on your own, this will necessitate qada only, but not kafara, right? There's no kafara for that. You come to me later on, I'll explain to you. Types of invalidators, food and drink. Now this is important, we should pay attention here. So you have an actual food and drink, something which is nutritious, something which is normally eaten, food or medicine which is normally eaten, and then you have something which is not eaten normally. So now when it comes to food and drink, we look at four things. The substance, meaning what has been consumed. Number two, the entry point, which part of the body did it go in from. Number three, after it went into your body, where did it end up? Number four, excuse. Was there any excuse or not? Depending on these four factors, this will determine whether your fast is broken or not, and if it is broken, then whether qada and kafara is necessary or only qada. Right, so we'll look at all these four things. Now, what are substances? The first thing we mentioned again was substance, right? So what are substances? We have three substances of consequence: liquid, solid, and gas, right? Gas is referred to here something which is perceptible body that can be seen. Like for example, smoke of an inhaler, cigarette, etc. This is considered gas over here that we're considering. So all these are substances of consequence. Now, what are the entry points of consequence? You have your nose, mouth, and back passage. Any other entry point that goes into your body is not an entry point of consequence. For example, you have your ears, you have your eyes, you have your pores that are on your skin, right? You have, the entry point from the, front private part. All these other entry points are not entry points of consequence. Only these three are entry points of consequence: nose, mouth, and back passage, right? Only those entry points that are considered that are medically established to have connection to the digestive system. So all the entry points that have connection to the digestive system. Any other entry points, such as the ears, eyes, etc., are not entry points of consequence. We'll be discussing ears and eyes a little bit later on, so just hold on to that. Masala. Eardrops will not invalidate the fast. Now, traditionally, the scholars, they wrote in the books of fiqh that eardrops and the ear is an entry point of consequence. This is what the traditional scholars wrote. However, medical science in this day and age has established that the ear is not directly connected to the digestive tract and digestive system. Because of this, most of the fuqaha in this day and age, they say that the ear is not an entry point of consequence, although the previous fuqaha mentioned that it is. So if they would say that if you put eardrops, and it will break your fast. However, modern day fuqaha, they say that it will not break your fast due to what? Due to medical research in this that we have available to us, right? However, there's some contemporary scholars that still say that we should take a cautionary approach and avoid it because the previous fuqaha mentioned it. However, one more thing to clarify, that there's no clear mention in the hadith in regards to the ear. So that is why the scholars allowed and they considered the medical science when they came to this. Right? So again, most of the scholars do say that you do not need to consider the ear. Ear will not break your fast. Only in one scenario, if the eardrum is perforated, if it's broken, then because what happens in the eardrum, it stops the thing from going all the way in. If there's no eardrum or the eardrum is damaged, then it can go all the way in and it can go into your digestive tract and end up in one of the places of consequence, which we will be discussing next, inshallah. Right? So if a person has a normal ear which is not damaged, then this will not break the fast. It's not an entry point of consequence. So again, the fast will be invalidated when a substance of consequence, solid, liquid, gas, enters through an entry point of consequence, which we determine are three at this moment, right? The nose, the mouth, and the back passage. Number three, when they end up in a cavity of consequence, in a place of consequence. What are the cavities? Inside your body, you have different cavities, different areas which are open, right? So from those, three of them are connected to the digestive system, and three of them, according to the Hanafi fuqaha, are called cavities of consequence when it comes to fasting, which is the throat, the stomach, and the intestines. So if anything from outside of the body ends up in these three places, then a person's fast will break. If it ends up anywhere else in the body, your fast will not break. Right? For example, brain. Brain is not a cavity of consequence according to the Hanafi fuqaha. Right? So these are three cavities of consequence. So a substance of consequence enters through an entry point of consequence and reaches a cavity of consequence. Then, now fourth, we come to the fourth condition, which is excuse. Now once all those things happen, now you will see, was there an excuse or was there no excuse? If the excuse is forgetfulness, this will not break the fast. We'll discuss that later. Right? If there was food stuck in the teeth, if it was smaller than an uncooked chickpea, this is also coming later. So these are two instances which have some, you can say, some tafsil, some details related to it. We'll talk about that later. Right? Now, what is an excuse? Things that one is not able to guard oneself against. And if you were to do so, then it would entail unbearable hardship. Meaning that these are those things, meaning one type of excuse is those things which is very difficult to stay away from. For example, you rinse your mouth in wudu and you spit out the water. Now there's some particles of water which remain in your mouth. Now how are you supposed to get rid of all of that? You're not going to take that, a vacuum and suck it out, right? So the water that remains stuck to the mouth and then it goes inside this, that doesn't matter. It doesn't, that's an excuse. You're excused for that and you don't need to worry about that. Same thing, possible dampness when showering, mucus, snot, saliva, you cannot stay away from that. So even if a person's mucus comes from the nose and you take it in like that and it goes in, it will not break the fast. Right? Mucus does not break the fast because it's coming from the top. Right? Saliva that ends up on the lips. So normally, if something is already in your mouth and then it goes down the throat, so as we mentioned the chickpea scenario, if it's less than that, it will not break your fast. If it's more than that, it will. So now if there's something outside of your mouth and you're taking it in, so from outside you're taking it in, no matter how big or small it is, it will break your fast. Now someone will think, wait, if I'm talking and saliva goes on my lips, it's outside my mouth. If I lick my lips and I take it back in, will it break my fast? So no, this is unavoidable. It's okay. Okay. Similarly, bugs and flies that involuntarily enter your mouth. It's summertime, it's a lot of mosquitoes, a lot of flies. Maybe you're walking back home in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh or somewhere, and there's flies and mosquitoes all over, and you're walking, you're talking to your friend, and all of a sudden a fly goes in. Unavoidable, you're not able to avoid it, so that will not break your fast. Okay. What are some invalid excuses? Accidentally eating or drinking. We're going to explain forgetfulness and accidental later on. Invalidating the fast out of necessity. Meaning you broke the fast without any excuse. This is not an excuse. Your fast will break, you have to do qada and maybe qada kafara. If you're forced to eat, if someone forces you to eat, this is also not a shari'i excuse. It's not a valid excuse. Missing the fast due to sleeping, this is not an excuse, you have to make up the fast. Missing the fast due to unconsciousness. So you were fasting, a person became unconscious, or maybe they were in a state of unconsciousness, so they weren't able to start the fast to begin with, then this is not a shari'i excuse, you will have to make up the fast later on. Missing the fast due to insanity. Again, this is not a shari'i excuse. Unawareness or not having knowledge. Meaning that a person did an action which does not break the fast, but they thought that it breaks the fast. So they said, oh, I thought it broke my fast, so I just continue to eat and drink. This is not a shari'i excuse. Okay? You will not have to do kafara, but you will have to do qada later on. So when you have a substance of consequence, enters through an entry point of consequence, reaches a cavity of consequence, and there is no excuse, the fast will be invalidated. Okay? So now, we have those things that make qada and kafara necessary, and those things which make only qada but not kafara necessary. So what are those things? How do we know which falls into what category? Okay? So now we're going to talk about those things that make qada and kafara necessary. So eating, drinking, or breaking the fast in any other manner, deliberately without any valid reason. So you ate or drank on purpose, knowing that you are fasting without any reason. Now, right? Sometimes some youngsters, they go to school, their parents told them to fast, they start in the morning, they go to school, and they say, oh, no one's looking at me, let me eat something. Right? If the person is baligh and the fasting is farad on them, they purposely broke the fast, or for that case, anyone else who does that, then they have to do kafara. And kafara is very serious. We'll discuss that later. Right? To take any type of medicine intentionally without a valid reason, right? So somebody took some kind of medicine or pills without needing to do that, without any medical reason, right? They just took it without any valid reason, right? They took it through the nose or mouth, or applied it through the nose or took it to the mouth, then qada and kafara is necessary. Injections do not break the fast, we'll talk about that later. So have relations while remembering your fasting will make qada and kafara necessary, right? During the daytime. So again, all these three things make qada and kafara necessary. Now we're going to talk about these three terms: deliberate, forgetful, and accidental. If a person does something deliberately, what does deliberately mean? You know you are fasting, so you eat and drink on purpose while you know you are fasting, you have to do qada and kafara. Forgetful, you forgot you were fasting. You came home from school and you thought, you're used to eating a snack, or you came home from work or school, you're used to eating a snack when you come home. You came home, you saw a banana, you ate it, and you were like, I was fasting, why did I eat? You forgot you were fasting and you ate. It doesn't matter, your fast doesn't break. That doesn't break your fast, that's an excuse, okay? Accidental, you know you are eating and drinking, and you put something in your mouth, you don't mean to eat it, but by mistake it goes down. Accidental, but you know you are fasting, and you purposely put that thing in your mouth, then only qada is necessary. So the difference between deliberate and accidental is, in deliberate, you know you are fasting, you purposely eat and swallow. In accidental, you know you are fasting, but you don't purposely mean to eat something. It just went down your throat without you intending to do so, right? Common example is you're doing wudu and you gargle, and by mistake the water goes down your throat. Your fast will break, but you have to do only qada no kafara. But it will break your fast. And even though it breaks your fast, right, that doesn't mean you're allowed to eat and drink the rest of the day. You still have to spend the rest of the day as if you are fasting, and then you have to make up that fast later on. Which things make only qada necessary? So again, as we mentioned, effective relation, right, that self-ejaculation, this will make only qada necessary. Accidentally eating, knowing that you are fasting, we just explained that now. Intentionally, now remember we talked about effective food and drink, right? Effective food and drink and the other type of food and drink. So something that is actually food. So if you eat something that is actually food, then you have to do qada and kafara. But if you swallow something that is not counted as food, it's not normally counted as food, it's not normally eaten, then this will break your fast, but you have to do qada only. So if someone chewed on a piece of paper and swallowed it, or someone swallowed a pebble, swallowed some paper, swallowed something else that is not normally used as food, as medicine, then your fast will break, but you have to do only qada. Right? If a person, this is also an important common question people ask, I thought that there was 2 minutes left for Fajr and I continued eating, and then I saw later on that the Subh Salat time was 5 minutes ago, and I continued eating, what should I do? Your fast will not count, you have to do qada later on. And you have to spend the rest of the day as if you are fasting. So technically you will be fasting in terms of not eating and drinking, but it will not be an actual fast. You have to make it up later on. Now why do you have to still remain hungry the rest of the day? Out of respect for the day of Ramadan, and because you don't have really any excuse to eat and drink, right? So you'll have to remain hungry the rest of the day, and you have to make up the fast later on, right? Even if it was mistake and not your fault. For example, your watch was set to the wrong time, even then, it's still, it's not a valid Shari'i excuse. Your watch was 5 minutes ahead, you didn't know about it, right? Or 5 minutes behind, you didn't know about it. You continued eating and you saw later on, my watch was 5 minutes behind. That means I was eating after Subh Salat time. So this means that the fast did not count. Right? Breaking the fast early. You think it's Maghrib time, or maybe the Adnaan went up on your phone, but it's not actually Maghrib time yet. So that's why you should be 100% sure that it's Maghrib time before you break your fast. Otherwise, the fast will break and you have to do qada. Inhaling medicine through the mouth or nose. Again, inhaling medicine if you have an excuse, right? Swallowing water by accident when gargling for wudu or ghusl, right? This is, again, not the water that remains in your mouth, but the actual water that you put in. The whole mouthful of water, swallowing that will break your fast. If something was forcefully put in the mouth of a fasting person, which is consequently followed, even if he or she was forced to swallow it, the fast will break. They have to do qada, but they don't have to do kafara because they didn't want to do it. Okay, it wasn't out of their own doing, right? But the fast will still break. To purposely inhale smoke or steam or anything with a perceptible body. So if there's any smoke or steam which is there, however the smoke or steam is, to purposely inhale it will break the fast. Swallowing toothpaste or mouthwash, right, will break the fast. Using nasal spray if it reaches his throat, right, this will break the fast. Swallowing blood from the gums if the blood is more than the saliva when it's mixed. So people say, can we go to the dentist? Well, if you're going to the dentist and the exam is such that they're just cleaning and nothing goes down the throat, it's fine. But if anything goes down the throat, or there's a chance of something going down the throat, it's better you delay the dental procedure, right? So if there's a chance of blood mixing with the saliva and the blood is more than saliva going down the throat, or there's a chance of the water or toothpaste going down the throat, then you should avoid that dental appointment. It's better not to do it because of that chance of your fast breaking. Vomiting. In vomiting, there's some, we can take a picture of this if you want, inshallah, because people may ask about it. If the vomit is less than a mouthful, then there's no consequence. If the vomit is more than a mouthful, if it's spontaneous, we're going to go to spontaneous. Spontaneous means it just comes on its own. You don't make it come. You ate, you had a sick tummy, and then you just vomited, right? You didn't force yourself to vomit. It just came, right? Then there's no qada, right? However, if you swallow it on purpose, then there will be qada. If you swallow it involuntarily, meaning there was some vomit, and you spit it out, but involuntarily some of it through the reflux, some of it slipped back down the throat, right? And you couldn't stop it, your fast will not break. If a person forcefully vomited, induced vomit, then you will have to do qada. This will break the fast. So induced vomit, meaning a person made themselves vomit more than a mouthful, on purpose they vomited, this will break the fast. And if it was not purposely vomited and it just came out on its own, if there was no swallowing, then it doesn't break the fast. And if it was swallowed, but you didn't want to swallow it, again the fast is not broken. But if you swallowed anything on purpose, then that will break the fast. Food stuck in the teeth. So one is taking something from outside to inside. That is what we discussed. If there's already food stuck in the teeth, will this break your fast? Right? So if you swallow without taking it out of the mouth, then you will see if it's bigger or equal to a chickpea size, qada is necessary. If it's smaller than the chickpea size, there's no consequence. A very small particle of food was stuck between the teeth. After Fajr Adhan, you took it out, you picked it out of your teeth with your tongue and you swallowed it, but you did not take it out, and it's a very small, less than the size of uncooked chickpea, then the fast will not break. If you took it out of the mouth, you looked at it, and then you put it back in and you swallowed it, this will break the fast. Okay? What does not break the fast? Right? Now there's a principle. For a fast, we already did this, we're going to revise it. For a fast to get invalidated, a substance of consequence, solid, liquid, or discernible gas, enters through an opening of consequence, reaches a place of consequence, throat, stomach, intestines, and there is no excuse. This is a principle to determine whether something broke your fast or not. Right? Now all the things coming ahead, one of these are missing, that is why it does not break your fast. Right? So now we can easily identify. Eye drops does not break the fast because the eyes are not an opening of consequence. Question. In this day and age, the doctors say that the eyes and the passage of the eyes, the canal is connected to the digestive system. That is why when you put eye drops, you can taste it in your throat, and if you were to blow your nose, let's say sometimes you go to the eye doctor, they dilate your eyes with like some yellow eye drops, and then later on you blow your nose, it will come out of your nose as well. You can feel those eye drops in your throat as well. Does that break the fast? So the answer is that majority of the scholars say that it will not break your fast. Right? Some scholars have tried to say because modern science has established that it is connected, so it should break the fast. Like how in the ears it was the opposite, that the back in the day scholars said it will break the fast. Modern science says it is not connected, so it does not break the fast. So this is also based on scientific research in this day and age, that they're saying that it is connected, so should it break the fast? Now the difference between eyes and ears is that in eyes there are clear hadith of Rasulullah mentioning that something that if a person puts surma or anything in the eyes, it will not break the fast. So because of those clear proofs, they maintain the principle that eyes, anything that goes in the eyes will not break the fast, even though modern science says that the eye may be connected to the digestive system, still it will not break the fast because those clear proofs are there in the Sharia. Right? So eye drops will not break the fast. Majority of the scholars are still with this view. Eardrops do not invalidate the fast, because the ears are not an opening of consequence unless it's damaged. And as we mentioned before, some scholars say you should still be careful, it's better to avoid it. But however, the Mufti qawl, which we do follow, which most scholars take, is that it will not break the fast. Injections. If injections are just given in the body and are not given through an opening of consequence, right, then it will not invalidate the fast. Normal injection they put in the veins, it will not break the fast, right? However, let's say hypothetically an injection is given directly into the intestine or directly into the throat or directly into the stomach, then that will break the fast, right? But other normal injections will not. Insulin injection, if it's a normal injection, no. If it's going directly to the stomach, then it will break the fast. But I think usually it's not given directly in the stomach, right? So it will not break the fast. Any other medical procedure, this is not mentioned, so I'm just going to mention it. People have questions. Any other medical procedure where something is put in, like an instrument is put in, into one of the passages of consequence, into the throat, into the nose, into the back passage. Sometimes they put an instrument inside to check you, right? If it's a dry instrument, your fast will not break. If they put some kind of liquid on it to help it go through, then the fast will break, but not because of the instrument, because of the lube that was put on and that went in. If that lube goes all the way into the stomach or the throat or the intestines, then that will break your fast. But in general, the rule is that those kind of procedures will not break the fast if there's nothing going inside. Just the instrument being put in, for example, sometimes they put a camera just to check, right? And they take it back out, biopsy I think it's called, right? So if it's just dry, then it will not break your fast, unless that thing is found, which I mentioned, that something ends up going to the cavity of consequence, right? Mosquito, fly, dirt, dust, etc. goes down your throat. It's a really dusty day. This will not break your fast because it's an excuse. It's hard to avoid that. Right? Blood test with drawing blood does not invalidate the fast because nothing is going to the entry of consequence. However, if a person is going to become really weak because of that, and you may have to break your fast, then it's makruh to do that. We already mentioned that before as well. Nicotine patches do not invalidate the fast because the patch is over here, it goes through your skin. The skin is not an entry point of consequence, so it's nothing. Same thing with anything else that is similar to nicotine patch. People use other stuff like that as well, weight loss patches and this patches, those patches, many kind of patches these days. So they will not break your fast. Sometimes even you have women also sometimes use these kind of patches for certain things, right? Not nicotine patch, but other kind of patches with other medicine. So those will not break your fast because it's not going to an entry point of consequence. Taking a bath to keep cool, vomiting unintentionally, brushing the teeth without toothpaste, none of this breaks the fast, right? Tooth extraction, in principle, does not break your fast, but I already explained it earlier that if something goes in, it will break the fast. If there's a possibility of something going in, it's best to avoid it, right? If there's really a need, let's say it's a very dire situation, right? It's really, really bad. The doctor says you have to take it out right now, otherwise you can get infected. Then go ahead with the procedure. Try your best to not let the blood go in. But if the blood does end up going inside, then your fast will break and you have to do only qada later on, right? Note, this is just a general rule for specific scenarios. You should refer to the ulama, inshallah. Right? Again, it's not a comprehensive list, it's just some common stuff that we mentioned. What is kafara? So we're going to go through this very briefly. If someone purposely breaks the fast of the month of Ramadan through eating, drinking, or relation, etc., then you have to do qada and kafara, right? And qada and kafara, it's not a choice between fasting 60 consecutive days and feeding food. You have to fast 60 consecutive days. The only time when you are excused from fasting and you can go to the feeding part is if a person is not able to fast anymore due to medical reasons, right? They're not able to fast, then they have permission to feed. Otherwise, you have to do the 60 consecutive days of fasting, right? Now, if a lady, due to her natural cycle, etc., she's not able to fast, there's no kafara for her. Another question ladies ask, I'll mention this in the fidya section, inshallah. Right? So for ladies, for their excuse that they have every month, they only need to do qada, nothing else. Right? Now, what is, if a person is not able to fast 60 consecutive days, right, due to old age now, they had some, when they were young, maybe they broke the fast on purpose, or not religious, they never made it up, now they became old, and they think, how can I make it up? I broke my fast on purpose, I need to do kafara, but I cannot fast 60 days, I'm old, I'm old and weak. Then what? Then there's these four things they can do in place of that. Again, this is only if they're not able to fast 60 days because of a Sharia excuse. Then they will feed 60 poor people 2 meals a day, or give 60 poor people the amount of sadaqatul fitr, either in cash value or the actual the material, like the wheat, barley, etc. They will give one sadaqatul fitr amount to 60 poor people, right? Or they will feed one person for 60 days 2 meals a day, or they will give one poor person 60 amounts of sadaqatul fitr for 60 days. Now, just one thing to clarify here. If a person takes 60, let's say you have to feed 60 people, right? So, or let's say a person comes down to this and they want to give sadaqatul fitr amount, right? The amount of sadaqatul fitr that you give on fitrana amount, that's a sadaqatul fitr amount, right? Let's say you want to give that. You cannot take, so it's 60 amounts of those. You cannot take all 60 amounts and give it to one person in one go. It will count only as one. You have to give the 60 amounts to 60 different people, or to one person one amount a day. If you give it all at once, it will not count. Similarly, if you take 60 pre-packaged meals, for example, not 60, 120, because feeding is twice a day. One feeding counts as 2 meals a day. So one feeding counts for 2 meals a day, because a normal, average person will eat 2 main meals a day. So one feeding is 2 meals. If you take 120 pre-packed meals and you give it at one time to a person, this will count as only one meal. It has to be separately, right? So either 60 people in one day, 2 meals, or one person, you feed that person for 60 days, twice a day. Along with the kafara, you also have to make up qada, right? So along with the 60 fasts, so a total of 61 fasts, if a person purposely broke their fast in Ramadan, right? Kafara is only for breaking a Ramadan fast. If a person purposely breaks a nafil fast, there is no kafara. Kafara is only if a person purposely breaks Ramadan fast. Who is excused from fasting? Right? A sick person is excused from fasting. Right? If the sickness is going to get worse, or it's going to, right? Meaning fasting will make them more sick, or the fasting will delay the recovery, right? Then this person is allowed not to fast, and they can make up the fast later, right? And if a person has a chronic illness that they're never going to get better, they can give fidya. Fidya is coming in the end. Right? So again, how will you determine this? Whether I'm sick enough not to fast. How do you determine that? So it will be determined, right? You look at the harm. So you have to see upright Muslim doctor who understands the importance of fasting, right? So either that, or a person has previous relevant experience, or there's some clear signs which prove that one of these things are going to happen. So either through one of these three means, a person is able to prove that the fast will become worse, or is going to delay the recovery, right? Now, what is the explanation of upright Muslim physician? If it's a non-Muslim doctor or non-religious Muslim doctor, or the doctor is scared to... Now, nowadays, a lot of doctors will give you a judgment, but it's not really what they think. It's to save themselves from getting sued. So if it's that kind of doctor telling you, oh, you shouldn't fast, but that's not actually the case. You could fast, but they don't want to tell you that, because if something happens, they're going to get sued. So you cannot take that into consideration, right? That's why you need a genuine, feedback from someone who will give you a realistic, scenario of whether you should fast or not. Not someone who's trying to give you a ruling just to save themselves, right? That's not enough, right? So preferably a Muslim doctor who understands the importance, if they can tell you, right? Relevant past experience. For example, a person has asthma. They know how their asthma is. They know that if I'm this sick in the morning, I'm going to get worse later on. So you have past experience, and this person can not fast that day and make it up later on. So past weather experience. Clear signs. It's very obvious that a person is very sick. They have a lot of fever in the morning. They're throwing up, and this person cannot fast, right? If a person has an illness or asthma attack during the day, so in the morning they were fine, they started the fast, and during the day they get an attack. Now they need to take some medicine, right? So you are allowed to break the fast, but you will have to do qada later on. You will not get sin. You will not be sinful. You are allowed to break it, but you have to do qada later on, right? Women in menses or postnatal bleeding, they'll make up the fast later, right? Now for ladies, there's 3 scenarios. Ramadan began while she was in the condition of menstruation, right? Then she's allowed to eat and drink during the day, and she can make up the fast later, right? It starts during the day, meaning she started the fast in the morning, and then during the day her menstruation started. So now she should eat and drink once, right? But in a manner that no one sees it. Why should she eat or drink? To show that I'm not fasting anymore. My fast has broken, and I'm not fasting. So to show that and prove that, she should eat or drink, and then she can remain hungry the rest of the day if she wants. But then she will have to make that fast up later. Third scenario, that she is menstruating, and during the day it stops. Now she cannot fast that day, but what she has to do is, as soon as it stops, now she should not eat the rest of the day. It will not count as a fast, but she should not eat the rest of the day. For nursing women, pregnant women, right? They should fast. However, if they have some kind of harm or concern of harm that herself or her baby can be harmed, or if it's very difficult for her, then she can make up the fast later, and she can skip the fast, right? Hunger and thirst, severe hunger and thirst, right? A person, they can miss or break the fast due to severe hunger or thirst, right? They can make it up later on. Traveler, if a person is on a journey for more than 54 miles, or if someone follows the fatwa 48 miles, that's fine as well, right? And you're a Shari traveler, then you can make up the fast later on. But your travel has to start before dawn, before the time of fasting came in. If at the time of fasting, subh sadiq, you're at home and you're going to travel later in the day, you have to fast that day, right? Okay, so this is explaining the different scenarios. I don't want to go through all of them in very detail because there's less time. Okay, So this is just some diagram to explain that you were at home and you became a traveler after dawn, then you have to fast. And if you were already a traveler before the time of fasting started, then you don't have to fast, you have a choice of leaving it out. However, if it's not going to be too hard to fast, you should fast. Last and not last is the fidya, inshallah. Now fidya, what is fidya? Some women ask that, do I need to give fidya on the days I'm not allowed to fast in Ramadan? There's no fidya for women who are not allowed to fast. There's only qada. You don't have to give any fidya. No sadaqah, no fidya, no nothing. Right? For an old person who cannot fast due to old age, they can give fidya. Fidya and kafara are two different things. Kafara is much more severe and is for a person who purposely broke the fast. That's kafara. That for that person is, feeding 60 people, etc. Fidya is completely different. Fidya is giving one sadaqatul amount for each fast that was missed, right? So the person who's extremely old, they cannot fast, they should give fidya for each Ramadan fast. So one fidya for each fast that was missed, right? What is the amount of fidya? Same like sadaqatul fitr, 3.5 pounds of wheat or 7 pounds of barley or 7 pounds of raisins or dates, etc. Right? Or the equivalent in cash. So every year we have the sadaqatul fitr poster that comes out. So you can take that amount and give that one amount for every fast that is missed for an old person who cannot fast and does not even have the hope of being able to fast later on. Let's say someone gave fidya and because of a chronic illness and all of a sudden they became better after like 5 years and now they're able to fast. Now all that fidya will turn into nafil sadaqah and they have to do qada. Okay? So that will have to be made up. That's one clarification there. Right? When do you give fidya? Anytime after Ramadan begins, you can give fidya for the entire month. Fidya you can give at one time, no problem. Fidya you can even give to one person. So you can give fidya of 30 days to a single poor person, that's fine. For kafara is a specific condition that you have to give it separately. Okay? Fidya must be given to zakat eligible people. It's permissible to give fidya of multiple fasts to one person. However, it is preferred to give each fidya separately, right, to different people. But you could give it to one person if you want to, right? If a person paid the fidya then recovered later on, they have to make up the fast. Frequently asked questions: when should qada be performed? As soon as you are able to, before you pass away, it should be performed. For women as well, they should try and make up their missed Ramadan fast as soon as possible, right? If you have never ever fasted your whole life, let's say you purposely missed the fast. There is no kafara for purposely missing the fast. It's only qada. Is qada an extreme sin for purposely missing the fast? Kafara is only for breaking the fast purposely without any valid excuse. Okay? If a person was smoking while fasting, smoking will break the fast. You have to give qada and kafara. Should children fast? So children who are not baligh, because they don't fulfill the condition of being baligh, being mature, they don't have to fast. However, fasting should be encouraged. Parents, you should encourage your children to fast. And if they cannot do a full fast, start off with a few hours to get them used to fasting. And they can start fast. They should, before they become baligh, they should already be used to fasting for the entire Ramadan. So by the age, whatever, every child is different. According to the age when they're able to fast, have them do a few fasts and then increase the number of fasts. By the time they're 11, 12, 13, they should technically be fasting the entire Ramadan unless they have an excuse. It's not obliged for them, but they should be in the habit of that. Right? If a person has to break the fast due to a necessary reason, right, then you can break your fast, but then you should not eat for the rest of the day. For example, for a medical reason like you mentioned before. If a person eats or drinks while forgetting that you are fasting, then nothing happens. Right? Can you brush your teeth with toothpaste? As we mentioned, is makruh. Right? You should not do that. It's better not to, because there's a chance of it going down the throat. While gargling, making wudu, some water went down the throat, your fast will break, right? Because this was accidental and this is not forgetful. You only have to do qada though. Right? What is the summary? You can take a picture of this. The things that do not break the fast. This is the first slide, the things that do not break the fast. Slide number 1. We will share this presentation later on, inshallah, with the community. This is the second slide of things that do not break the fast. I'm not going to read it out because we already mentioned most of it. And now you have the things which do break the fast. These ones are all related to eating and drinking, right? Deliberately or accidentally, right? So these do invalidate the fast. Again, this is another slide of things that do invalidate the fast. So you can take a picture over here. For this one, right, for my young friend sitting here, you should avoid that, but if someone does it, it's only qada, not kafara. So inshallah, this is the end. Jazakumullah khair for listening. I hope that everyone was able to learn something, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq to act upon what has been said. And inshallah make our Ramadan full of barakah and blessings. Amin wa khada.